Hello everyone, this is my second response video to the zombie bunker in regards to the Springfield Hellcat and the trigger safety concerns he has. Hopefully our furnace doesn't drown out my voice. It's kind of loud down here in the basement. But anyways, I basically disagree with his thoughts on the trigger safety. So there are two arguments, in my opinion, as to the function of the trigger safety. This gun is unloaded. So, and I've come across people arguing about this, whether the design of it is meant for being drop safe and snag safe, or one or the other, or both, whatever. Some people say it's just meant for when the gun is dropped that the trigger doesn't pull from inertia. Some people say, well, it's actually there to prevent snagging for reholstering. And who knows what companies design it for both or one or the other or whatever. But the fact that in my gun collection, and I've got a lot of handguns, every gun on this table would fail that test. And I'm going to go over them and make my point. So if this trigger was designed to prevent snagging, it's doing its job then, because as you holster the gun, if you get clothes in the way, or get clothes bunched up, or you have a leather holster or a collapsing holster, as it goes into the holster, being a right-handed person, it most likely would snag on this side of the gun. It really doesn't matter, but a lot of trigger guards aren't any thicker, much thicker than the trigger itself. I don't know how much that will show up, but if you feel it, it's about a 1/16 of an inch on this gun. But as it's reholstered, clothing or whatever, the holster itself could enter the trigger guard. Well, if that were to happen, and we're talking about 1/16 of an inch here for that to actually happen. But basically, if anything came into this trigger guard and just touched the blade on a gun that's not designed to stop that, well, it's just going to pull the trigger. Now, how little this or much this would prevent a trigger from pulling, who knows? But the fact that if some clothing or whatever got in the trigger guard and got up against the trigger, it's an impossibility that it would depress the trigger. Where with, like, he used as an example as like a Glock, if you even breathe on that trigger safety, the trigger is going to get pulled. So just the fact that there are so many guns that will do this, and I don't know what other guns will do this, I think it's by design. So we'll start going over the guns I have here. Already gone over the Hellcat. Let's just start with the aftermarket trigger first. This is a polymer 80 I built. It's just a range gun, a fun gun for me to play around with. But it has a Apex aftermarket trigger in it, and Apex is probably the most popular aftermarket trigger on the market. I could be wrong, but it seems to be that they're extremely popular. So a ton of people own Apex triggers, whether it's on shields, they make them for FN, Glock, probably a couple other guns. It's my assumption that they will all function the same. I could be wrong on that. Maybe this trigger in a Glock would function differently. I'm kind of doubting it, but whatever. So, and I'm just going to mimic how this works. So basically, like how he was showing, if you get on the side of it, and this is just for demonstration purpose, using your full finger, whatever. Depress the trigger, and you cannot move that safety bar, or whatever you want to call it, dingus, whatever. It will not move. The interesting thing with this gun, or this trigger I should say, hopefully this will come out on video. If you even move it a little bit, you can still get it to lock the trigger. See that? It's about a 1/16 of an inch that you can get it to move and still get it to lock. Obviously, it doesn't take much to clear that opening. And it is extremely hard, just like the Hellcat. Proper grip, finger in the guard. It virtually takes nothing to get that trigger to engage. Now, theoretically, and his argument is don't get a good grip, whatever, that you actually push the trigger here, and that's what locks it up. And it's very hard for me to do that, but I can, in fact, do that. So, Apex trigger on a polymer 80, same thing. I'm just going to get that out of the way. Canik TP9 SF Elite, and this is what actually made me think about this a little bit harder. Someone had commented that his Canik TP9 SFX would do the same thing. And I thought about it. I'm like, well, I have a Canik, and I know that their triggers across the board are all the same. They're essentially the same. So I pulled the Canik out, and yeah, it's true. It will do the exact same thing. I should have showed that was unloaded. These are all unloaded. So, exact same thing. Pull the trigger, get it to lock to the back, and you cannot move that blade. Same concept, so pressing with the lower part of your finger, somewhere in this region. And it's really hard with this gun because this safety does not stick out very far. Up against the side of the trigger, start pulling, and yeah, you're not pulling that trigger. Exact same thing. Oh, and I should mention, they changed the trigger design about 6 years ago on this gun, or on the Caniks. It was based off the Walther P99, and those didn't have trigger safeties on them because they were double action, single action. They were meant to be carried by decocking the gun and carrying it in double action. So the first pull is a heavy trigger pull. So inertia is not going to cause that trigger to depress from dropping it. So they changed the design about 6 or 7 years ago. And there's only one new model. I think it's the Combat, the TP9 Combat. Has like a salient arms trigger. I don't know how that functions, but that's the only model that doesn't use this trigger. And even the new DA models use this trigger. So no one's complained other than that comment that I saw in one of his videos. So, next gun is the Steyr M9. And starting off with how many years this has been on the market with the exact same trigger. The Gen 1s were essentially the same trigger. The only changes they made to the trigger, and I don't know about the Gen 1, but they used to have this weird safety up in the frame of the gun here. Don't think it changed how the trigger works, but I could be wrong. As far as I know, the blade in this has never changed in 21 years. So, this isn't like a crazy popular gun, but there's, in 21 years, there's got to be thousands, in the market that people own. And I've never heard of anyone complaining about the trigger snagging up. The only changes they made to improve trigger pull was they put, I believe it's on the Gen 4s, they put this roll pin in here that supposedly smooths out the trigger. I don't know. I've never pulled a trigger on a Gen 1, 2, or 3, so I don't know. But this one's probably the hardest to get to lock up, and I don't think you can totally get it to lock up, but it makes it incredibly hard to pull the trigger if you in fact lock it up. So again, pull the trigger to the rear. Now it's interesting, if you go towards the bottom, you can actually, I'm pushing pretty damn hard. Can't really get it to go. At the top, can't really get it to go. If you go more in the center, you can get it to go, but just guessing, that's probably 20, 25 pounds of pressure, just based off of experience. Not that I've ever pulled a 25-pound trigger, but you know what I'm saying. It takes an incredible amount to get that trigger to pull. So, again, pushing here, getting a bad grip, not getting that finger to curl for whatever reason, it is extremely hard to get that to go. Because what I'm doing is, as I'm getting it to pull, then I'm trying to curl my tip of my finger in front of it. And it is extremely hard to get that to go. Can it be done? Sure. But if you get on the side of it and not get in front of it at all, it's not going to go. It's just no way. Plus, it's kind of a unique design. It's meant to go straight back. If it follows this guide here, and it sticks way out, so it's really hard to miss it. But theoretically, you could miss it. Now, we're going to move to this gun, the Smith & Wesson Shield. Now, this is where I think he gets a little hypocritical. In one of his deleted videos, he used an FNS subcompact, and I used to own an FN, the same exact gun he owned. Got rid of it. It's not like I hated the gun. It's a good gun, just didn't float my boat. So, wish I had it to display it, but he deleted the video, and he even said for a split second that if you pull way up at the top, the trigger won't pull. Well, the argument is if you can't pull that trigger the first time, you shouldn't be carrying it. So, again, not loaded. This is the easiest gun for me to make the trigger fail. And I honestly didn't remember this space being so large. But I have skinny fingers, of course. If you pull up at the top, you cannot get the trigger to pull. It's impossible. And I'm even on. My finger is touching part of this, the hinge trigger. Now, if I rotate my finger down, which is really hard considering I'm pulling up on the trigger to make this happen. So I'd have to fail and then pull like this, which all of this is, to me, is totally unnatural. Very, very hard for me to do, but I could see somebody doing this. So now I'm going to try and roll my finger down, and I can get it to go. But all unnatural, all weird. First pull, if you landed on that trigger wrong, it ain't going. It's just not going to go. But if you even just the slightest pressure, you can get it to overcome that. Doesn't matter to me, though. You can lock it up. So what do we make of all this? I don't think it's a concern, because if you own a gun, you should learn to use the gun. You should use proper techniques. I don't think stressful situations is a good excuse. The idea of some of these designs, to me, is to incorporate snag-free. Not 100% snag-free, but that's kind of the idea behind it. This guy, this zombie bunker guy, he seems like a nice guy. I don't agree with his interpretations, his opinions of what a suitable carry gun is, or trigger-wise. And one thing I also want to point out is, in his unboxing video, of course, everybody pulls the trigger a couple times. And it had not been brought to his attention yet that this was an issue. And he pulled it, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times. Fine. He got it. Put his finger in, pulled the trigger. But somebody, I think his name's Patrick Hill, brought it to his attention, and he lost his shit. I don't know. Whatever. Big deal to him. So it makes me wonder, if no one had brought it to his attention, would he have had this problem? Or would he have noticed it on his own? And I'm thinking he probably wouldn't have. Is that unacceptable? I don't think so, because I think it's designed that way. I firmly believe that the way this works is done intentionally. Basically, people who make arguments like this want the gun to be idiot-proof. No gun is idiot-proof. Can't stress that enough. If you're handling a gun, if you're carrying a gun, you should know basic fundamentals, the 4 safety rules. It's not idiot-proof. Okay? So, the way he's talking, he should have a frame-mounted safety, because I don't even, whatever. Makes it more idiot-proof. Frame-mounted safety make it more idiot-proof. Well, for years, people, didn't want manual safeties. You want that gun to come out and be ready. Well, I don't know. So, I'm just kind of thinking here. So yeah, we've had guns. Well, in one case, over 20 years, nobody's making these arguments. And if they are, it's in the eye of the beholder. If you feel this gun is unsafe to carry, or this one or whatever, that's just, your opinion. So, I don't know what else to really say. I guess that's all I got for now. If I have any other thoughts, I'll put them in notes at the end. And, nothing against Zombie Bunker. He seems like a good guy. Just don't agree with him. So, thanks.